Welcome to another episode of Now It's Legal, where we talk about the future of college athletics with all the different stakeholders, athletes, coaches, athletic directors, commissioners, media folks, you name it. We want to talk about this as we see it evolve into what we call the New Deal at my company, athletes.org. Our team is constantly working on how can we get the stakeholders together to figure out the new deal for college athletics now. The question we always ask ourselves and a lot of the people that we are talking to about that new deal is what is the cost of not figuring that new deal out today versus waiting for courts to push the new deal tomorrow? Now, as you think about this question, it's really good to talk about it with different stakeholders from different lenses because you learn something every time you do that. And this episode is with a guy who really has a unique lens. Sean Clifford is currently the backup quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. He's going into his second season in the National Football League after realizing his dream and getting drafted in the 2023 NFL Draft. Sean was a standout star quarterback at Penn State, one of the biggest programs in college football, one of the most storied traditions. And during his time there, NIL began, and Sean capitalized on it. But he also built a business helping other athletes capitalize on NIL. He built his own agency with other students who really helped him build a company that serves all kinds of athletes, all kinds of sports in doing NIL deals. And then on top of all that, Sean tried to organize Big Ten football players, starting with his teammates at Penn State, into what was looked at as a union and is very threatening to a lot of leaders in college athletics. He's going to talk about all of this. And I think it's really important as you listen to this interview for you to think about it from his perspective and the perspective of the athletes who are trying to figure out how all of these decisions around their collegiate athletics experience, from how many hours a week they're mandated to work out and practice, to how much revenue could be shared with them from the revenue they produce, to even knowing how much revenue they produce with their sport. There's all these things that they have not been included in. And when they are included, not only will those things be even better standards because you have the perspective of the athletes, but once the athletes are included in deciding the terms of the new deal, all these lawsuits can go away because now the athletes have agreed to a deal in principle with their school conference and the NCAA, giving the NCAA the protection they're currently, as we speak, fighting for in DC. That's where we could go with the new deal in college athletics. And this interview with Sean Clifford will give you a great lens from the athlete's perspective on that. All right, Sean. So you're here at Final Four, first one, Phoenix. And not only are you going to your first games, but you're also going to be here because you're an investor with athletes.org. And our cause is near and dear to your heart, which we're going to get into today. It's a big part of your story. But where I want to start is your QB1 at Penn State, one of the most tradition-rich programs in the country. And you hear this NIL thing is going to be starting on July 1st, 2021. What's going through your head? What was that like?
Well, it dates all the way back for me, actually, to 2020. I was actually in a class, creative advertising class, with a guy named Trevor Robinson. And in that class, our one task, so the project for the whole semester, was to recreate a brand. And I wanted to go to the professor. I wanted to talk to him. So I did. And I said, hey, I would love to do this project on the quote-unquote Sean Clifford brand. I'm not trying to be cocky or arrogant or anything like that. I just really want to be prepared for what the future might hold with NIL. Because if you remember, 2020, they were kind of talking about it. COVID hit, kind of pushed everything back with legislation. But they were having those discussions. So I just want to be ready and prepared. So we did the project. I got an A on the project. So academia labeled it as a pretty solid project, solid brand. So I put that in the closet for a while. And then July 1st hits. I didn't call an agent. I didn't call my parents. I didn't call anybody. I called Trevor Robinson. I said, Trev, remember that project that we did in 2020? Let's pull it out of the closet. So that was July 1st for me. I was so excited. I knew that the world was going to change for college athletics. I knew that we could honestly finally capitalize on things that we wanted to do. I was entrepreneurial in high school. I've coached quarterbacks, younger quarterbacks, as a training program back in Cincinnati, Ohio. Side hustle.
That's awesome.
So I wasn't even excited as much for just making all the money, like making money in NIL. I was excited that I could just be creative, explore, and do different things. So, I mean, we did a plethora of things. We did signings. We did events. I created my company off of it. I did a bunch of different things. My brother and I had a training app that we made. So it was just being able to be myself, and that's what NIL really meant for me, and that's what July 1st was so important.
Well, going back to your business, you said start your company. I think it's a pretty unique story because you were individually a big enough brand in college football at this time when NIL starts to go make money individually, but you decided to start your own company, not just to have your own business, but to help other athletes that might not have as big of an opportunity, at least as naturally as you do as QB1 at Penn State. So talk about Limitless, your company, where the idea came from to start it, and how you were able to sign athletes, not just at Penn State, but around the country, and help them make money with NIL.
Yeah, so it was really, I had the decision to come back for my 6th year. And that was really when the conversations began, because I had 6 months with NIL, first year of it. I was seeing a lot of success. Some of the other guys that I was helping out were as well. But for my 6th and final year, I wanted to do something different. Penn State was still trying to figure it out, as everybody was, with all the collectives and how the structure is going to be, and who's going to get paid, who's not going to get paid. So I just wanted to be really prepared. So made that decision, come back for the sixth year. Best decision I ever made. Tough decision, though. I mean, when you're watching kids pull a tire and they're 17 and I'm 20, 23, going to be 24, it's a big age gap. So for me, it took a little bit of time, but when I made that decision to come back, I would never regret it, because then directly after, my brother, Liam Clifford, who plays for Penn State right now, we went ahead and we started Limitless NIL, and it was solely off the fact that there's a lot of brand deals that I was getting, and just deal flow in general, camp ideas, sponsorships, all these different things. But some of them just didn't fit my brand as much as I would hope. But I noticed that it might fit his brand or her brand or this group of athletes' brands, especially at Penn State. So that's where we just started. I just wanted a couple clients, and really, I mean, 1 turned to 3, 3 turned to 10, and then we were in the summer with a full team, and we had over 50 clients, and it was just mind-boggling. And we were operating actually out of, so my apartment, we had the common area, and we had these beautiful, like, big glass doors and this office space. And so I went to the people and I said, and the only people on campus are athletes and international students in the summer at Penn State. I said, hey, do you mind if I just use the space? I mean, people can come in and out. I'm not trying to take it. I'm just saying, do you mind if I have people kind of moving around in this area? And they said, no, don't worry. We ended up changing our mailing address to them. They would give me the mail when I came in the morning. Before I go in the morning, work, go to workouts, come back, work. We had athletes coming in the door left and right. It was a hoot. But yeah, that was the conception of it.
Well, I think, that's the cool part about NIL is all of the new muscles it got athletes to start using at such a young age, right? There's so many things that you have been able to do because of NIL, including building your own company, that will last well beyond you playing football. And obviously, you're still playing QB2 for the Packers, going into your 2nd year. Congrats on the draft and solidifying yourself with such an amazing organization. But this muscle that athletes get to work with NIL, it's one they can use their whole lives after they're done playing. And one story I want to tell is you came down to play the Auburn Tigers. Obviously, I'm based in Birmingham, and Auburn's just a couple hours down the road. Sophie, who leads our marketing at athletes.org and is here today coordinating the shoot, is a Penn State grad, and her and a bunch of
big there.
And a bunch of other Penn State grads came down and went on to the lake at Lake Martin, and then we went and watched Penn State Auburn. And you guys had a pretty good game. Do you remember the score? Was it
42-13? I think it was. Yeah.
Of course, that was the second year in a row you played Auburn.
Yeah,
You beat them both times.
2-0, and they
28-20 up there. Right?
I forget what it was, but somebody on Twitter was running their mouth, and I don't really get into it on Twitter, but somebody was running it even after the second win. So I just quote tweeted and I said 2-0.
Yeah.
I died. But yeah, that one was fun.
So the reason I bring up that game is you and I were texting before the game, and we were maybe going to meet up, and we were working around all the travel of you guys from State College to Auburn, and then we ended up seeing each other at the game on the field afterwards, and then I'll never forget the next morning. I had stayed in Auburn with my friends, and we went out and had a good time, and I get up the next morning, and you send me a picture, and it says "back at it," and you're in the film room at Lash, right? That's the football facility at Penn State.
Yeah.
And you're in the film room and you're juggling Limitless, your company, and some of the stuff that you have to get done in your off time while also looking at film, getting ready for the next game, even though you just had a big win against Auburn. And I was like, wow, what a new, beautiful situation college athletes are going to be able to have because of NIL.
Right.
So, what was it like trying to balance all of that for a whole season?
No, it got tough sometimes, but I'm just not a big, just my cup of tea. I'm not a big video game guy. I don't really go out that much, and I just really enjoy business. I enjoy having conversations with people. I enjoy having a nice time blocked schedule where I can meet with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies and have great conversations and learn their businesses, talk about mine. And really, at such a young age, what NIL gave me was the opportunity to step in the room. And that's what I was so excited about. Being able to, I've always seen all the podcasts. I see Mark Cuban, I see Michael Rubin, I see you, and all these great, fantastic business owners. And I wanted to be there. And before NIL, you just couldn't. It was quite literally illegal. So being able to jump into that space and really start to dive into different ideas, different concepts, talking, and that was another thing with Limitless that was so much fun. Even if it wasn't a brand deal or something that we were doing specifically, it was so much fun to hear athletes talk about their dreams, their aspirations, and then as I developed more, strategies and skills myself, I could then help younger kids create a business or create a brand or do something outside their comfort zone, and I just fell in love with it. I mean, that's what I still love to do. So
So with that, we had our first run-in about 4 years before NIL starts. You and I meet.
Yep.
Coach Franklin brings me in with Influencer to talk about brand building. And of course, at that point, Influencer is just a content delivery platform where you're getting your pictures and videos. And I meet you, I meet Will Levis, I meet a bunch of the guys. Garrett Taylor, I still keep in touch with him. Love that guy. GT, shout out. He's down in South Florida killing it. But, I meet all you guys, and like most team talks, there were a lot of athletes lining up after wanting to ask questions. And when we got a chance to talk, that was the biggest thing that I mentioned in my speech to the team that resonated with you. And it was, wow, so because I'm at Penn State, people will answer my DMs. Mm-hmm. People will respond to my emails. People will take my calls that might not ordinarily do that. And then you took action on it. So do you feel like you already said in 2020 you started thinking about NIL in that class, but were you felt prepared when NIL started? You were already working those muscles I'm talking about.
Always. I mean, I was always working. And I think it comes a little bit from my parents. I mean, they always just drove work ethic for me. So I was always looking to find new ways to be innovative for myself. And I mean, it goes back all the way to 2017. The minute that I stepped in, one of the best things I ever heard, Andrew Nelson, left tackle for Penn State at the time, captain. I was just a young, scrawny freshman. First days that we walked in the building, we had a player panel, and it was just the players, no coaches, just the freshmen, and then some of the Penn State captains. And he talked about, he had so many injuries in his career, and he was a great player, but just injury fatigue got him. But he said the one thing that he committed to at the very beginning of his career was having no regrets. And he spoke on that. And for some reason, I mean, so many people said so many great things, but that always resonated with me. And so from then on out, I just made the decision that I'm going to never have a regret. If I just need to look beyond 1 year, 10 years, look at myself 30 years down the line and say, is this something that you want to do, be proud of? And and that's kind of how I've always lived my life. So going back to your point, in 2017, I was saying, okay, how can I get involved? How can I get involved not only for football, but also outside, get involved with the donors, things that I would do like when I was starting too in 2019, my first year, after games, I would try to stay back and go to the president's suite and try to find different people, shake hands, be able to talk to people, because I knew that I might not know it now, but I knew that eventually it would come down the line to help myself, my family, and also my network of people. So always looking to be innovative.
Well, I remember, one thing that I loved talking to athletes about when I was going around speaking to teams is being ready for the moment.
Right.
Now we're here at March Madness. The women's tournament happened last night, and there was some great games, crazy games. Yeah. Obviously tonight we have some big matchups. And those athletes are in a moment that will live in history forever. They'll always be able to say they were in the Final Four. They'll always be able to talk about the experience of making it this far. And one of those teams will have a group of athletes who have a ring. But while all that's going on, you have athletes like DJ Burns. And he was ready for this run that the 11 seed NC State Wolfpack made and is capitalizing on it so much on social, right? But even before NIL, there was an opportunity for athletes to be ready for the moment. And you are a story of that. Everything we've talked about so far, you were ready for NIL to begin because you were already networking. You were already using social to connect with people. You were already using social to tell your story. And you were even studying it in class, and you sowed oats of entrepreneurship as a teenager in different ways on your own and through your parents. So that stuff's amazing. But you took the moment even further. The reality is, just like O'Bannon beating the NCAA was writing on the wall for NIL, there are a lot of new cases, starting with Alston, which the NCAA lost 9-0 in the Supreme Court, all about the antitrust violations of the NCAA and the capping that they're doing of what athletes can get. And more cases like House, Johnson, Carter, NLRB cases have began to emerge. And it's not just about NIL. It's about actually sharing revenue with the players, not all players, but with the athletes that produce it, which you were one of those athletes at Penn State. And so what ended up happening first was collectives emerged. Collectives emerged because the most important thing that teams need is talent.
Right.
And so if we can't pay players directly to come to our school, let's use NIL as a mechanism to pay them. And so first, I want to talk about the collectives emerging and how were you ready and responsive to that whole situation? And I know you kind of came in on the front end, so it's gotten even bigger, the collective dollars since you left. But talk about the collectives and the portal and how all that works.
Yeah, I mean, it was so fresh for me. I mean, I was on the forefront of it because, I mean, just being honest, I was probably the number one NIL athlete at Penn State at the time, just because it's the quarterback position.
Yeah.
It comes with the territory, and whether I liked it or I didn't, I kind of had to embrace it. So with that, I had so many great conversations with Pat Kraft and Sandy Barber and Coach Franklin, and really the list goes on and on of all the Penn State people that I had conversations with. And then the collective started to be able to form. And one of the reasons I made Limitless too was because I love Penn State, and I wanted to have a stable of athletes that could also work with the collective, and I could learn from other athletes, have more case studies, so that way I can give more information to the collective and say, hey, like, this is what's really happening. I know that you're thinking about implementing this. Let's think about trying to go a different way. And that's really evolved now for me, not only at Penn State, but now I've been able to talk to so many ADs and have so many conversations across the country with coaches that used to coach me or former players who are now getting into coaching. They're always asking me, hey, what's your opinion on this? What's your opinion on that? And I always just go back to those original case studies that we were having conversations with early and often in NIL, because if I go back and I look through, I do this every once in a while, I'll go back and look through the old files of like the beginning stages of the company, And so many things resonate still to this day. I know that there's so much new, and
Sure.
athletes.org, obviously, and just so many new things, but some of the very, very core concepts that we were talking about in July 2nd of 2021 and then January of 2023, when the company was kind of being formed, those are still great docs. I love reading through it, and just the ideas. When I'm talking to Jair Brown, who plays for the San Francisco 49ers, we're talking about great ideas to go back to Trenton and really help his community. And you just see all the different ideas and concepts that all these athletes had. It's really, it's cool. It really is.
On the other side of it, though, is there's really two segments of NIL.
Yep.
There's real NIL, which is endorsements, doing things back in your home community to help them out, all of it. It's beautiful. And there's another side of NIL, and it's great in one sense, but it has some issues in another sense. And that other side of NIL is the collective-driven NIL deals that are made to induce young people to make decisions to go to a certain school. It's become, hey, what can you pay me?
And pay for play.
And it's pay for play. And it's great from one sense of it because $16 billion a year flows through college sports, and the great majority of it comes from power conference football athletes, and they should be getting paid. But the problem is it's not coming directly from the school. There's no structure.
Right.
You don't know what offer's real and what offer's not. If you take an offer as an athlete, you might not even get what you've been offered if you go transfer to another school for $500,000. Who says they're even going to pay you the $500,000? And obviously, it's created a lack of continuity at the team level, where when you were there, you had guys that you played together for 3-4 years.
Right.
That is almost gone now in college sports because you also have the portal and this collective-driven NIL recruiting inducement happening at the same time. So what are your thoughts on all that?
It's tough because I also go all the way back to when I was 10 years old, when I was 12, and I was a Notre Dame fan early. And the beauty of college sports is the affinity to the school, the love, the passion that the athletes bring because we are Penn State, or the Fighting Irish, or the USC Trojans, and I see the Caleb Williams holding up the sword and throwing up the peace sign. Like, those are the moments of college sports that I grew up loving. I remember, just random story, but one of the reasons that I wanted to play ball was my dad got me 2 camp tickets for me and my best friend at the time, and his dad. They kind of surprised us on Christmas, flew us out to the Rose Bowl. We had a Steve Clarkson passing academy. It was my first ever one I ever done of quarterback specific.
Wow. I
fell in love with the game there. And then, of course, my last game in college football is at the Rose Bowl playing, and I still get goosebumps to this day just because it was so special. And that's what I sometimes fear when we talk about the new era is that fan base going to stay the same with all these players getting paid? I just hope that trust between the fans and the athletes is still there, because we really do love our schools, but sometimes you just have to make that decision to kind of jump around, because it's huge opportunities for these kids. I mean, the opportunity to come from wherever they come from, right? Financial backgrounds, economics, whatever it might be, and have that jump and have that opportunity to get in the transfer portal and really explore. So it's a mixed bag, because that old college football, college sports fan in me wants it to stay the same, but also I just see, it's changing, and we need to adapt as well. So, that's why Athletes.org is here.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Athletes.org exists because really there's an opportunity for a win-win, right? The college football and basketball and maybe some of the other athletes that produce revenue, like men's, women's basketball and football athletes do, and we can see the revenue they produce with the March Madness deal, with the CFP deal, with the conference deals. And it is a $16 billion elephant in the room, as Jeffrey Kessler, the lead litigator against the NCAA in the House case, called it. So we believe that there's a way for athletes to be paid transparently, with structure, with a minimum salary and a maximum, and with terms that also require an athlete to stay for a certain amount of years, which would help create more loyalty to the program, but also I think address some of the trust stuff that we talked about between athletes and their schools and between fans and college football. And so that's what we're working on. Is like these court cases are going to set precedents for revenue to be shared. Let's create a system that's great for everyone. And also to the fans, let's remember that when a coach wins in the second round of March Madness with his mid-major team and makes the Sweet 16 and then takes a big job the next day with a major program, we celebrate that.
Right.
Why are we not celebrating an athlete who was recruited as a 3-star and went to a mid-major football program and played really well and got a great offer to go play at Penn State?
Right.
What's the difference? We just want that athlete to stay at a small school his whole time just because of who he was as an 18-year-old? No, he developed more, and now he can move up.
And I think it's also telling the story, not forgetting that mid-major. The mid-major is the one that took the chance on that guy. Mm-hmm. The one that the mid-major gave him or her the opportunity to take the next step. So it's celebrating those schools that are doing so well of finding talent and being able to really educate, teach, and then be able to grow that talent. And then taking that next step, because there is, it's a difference at Penn State when you're playing in front of 110,000 people. I got the blessing to be able to experience that. But Jair Brown, I said it earlier, he was a JUCO guy, and we talk about his JUCO experience all the time because that school, that university was so important and so pivotal for him because the coaches that brought him up, and why not celebrate that whole journey instead of clowning somebody or talking about how, oh, it's not right, it's not fair to that. It's part of the process, and that's what I think we really need to be more aggressive to talk about that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, and also, the name of this show is Now It's Legal, which has a lot of different meanings, but with NIL, the donor-driven side with collectives inducing players has been going on for a long time in college football. The bagman. So let's acknowledge that too. All right, so let's go into being ready for the moment again. And for you decided to come back.
Yep.
You're making money with NIL as QB1 at Penn State. You're making money with a business now that's helping athletes with their NIL deals. And you're going to be QB1 coming back to Penn State, a top 5 preseason ranked program. And in addition to all that, you start taking an idea that came to you for a union for Big Ten football players that would start at Penn State and working on that. You added that to your plate because of this moment in time we're in. And a lot of the stuff that we're working on 2 years later at athletes.org, you were working on it in the spring and summer of 2022.
So with all this, I just got to uncover what was really going on. That's at the end of the day, I got to pull back the curtain and kind of see what the business of sports was like. And I just saw the opportunity to not necessarily unionize off right away, but more so grab an association, be able to bring players to the table and just have conversations. And the reason, the one of the stories that hit really, really close to home for me, if you remember the Virginia shooting, and those kids on that bus, my brother plays on the same team as me. And I thought long and hard that day. It happened, and then we played the game, and we won, and I just remember sitting on the bus just thinking about the community of the Virginia community and all that they were going through at that time. And it just hit me with my brother on the bus. He's sitting right next to me, and if that would happen at Penn State, how devastating that would be for myself, my family. It was devastating just to hear it. So we go in the next day, and to no fault of his own, Coach Franklin, we were in a leadership council meeting, which we do every Sunday after the game, just kind of review. And we're talking about next week how we're gonna go about supporting Virginia. And Coach Franklin had talked to some of the coaches and everything, and they were trying to get some ideas around. But I was realizing, I was like, it's not really on him. It's on the play. Like, this is the players. Like, we are the players of NCAA, of college football. We should have a mechanism to be able to have these conversations.
Maybe have a sticker on helmet with a message that's unified.
That could potentially support and raise money or awareness and be able to take that step, but we don't.
Right.
And that was so critical in my mind early that we need to have some sort of group, some sort of association that we can put all this together and have these conversations. So that's really where, I was addressed in the summer of 2022. had some conversations with a guy about the association, being able to put that together, and that's really where it began.
So you decide to meet with your fellow leaders for the football team. You decide, hey, I'm going to show this to the team and see what they would think about it. And I think it's important to also clarify, it wasn't necessarily unionization, because unionization is not even really possible at this point.
Yeah, we're not.
And I know that we've seen Dartmouth's men's basketball team recently vote to unionize, but full unionization with collective bargaining and being a collective bargaining unit, there are ramifications that come with college athletes. Number one, they're not employees. Right. Number two, if college athletes were employees, it's questionable who they would be employees of. And based on who their employer would be, there might be laws against them unionizing because of, public institutions being a part of, or being in states that have laws against that. So there's all those technicalities. And so a lot like AO, you just want to get the athletes together.
Right.
And let things evolve as they evolve. Right. And so you start with your team. And what was it like talking about it with your teammates and seeing the interest and buy-in they had?
It was automatic. I mean, I started with the captains. I brought all the captains in. I said, hey, guys, this is critical, and I'll explain why. And we talked and talked and talked about the pros and the cons. We went through the list. And really, at the end of the day, we just saw that it was necessary. And we thought that I had an older captain room. Those guys in that room are near and dear to my
Joey
heart.
Porter Jr.?
Joey was close. He was the leadership guy,
okay.
but Joey Porter was in there. Jair Brown again. Jonathan Sutherland was a 4-year captain with me. Chris Stoll. I mean, the list goes on and on of just the fantastic men in that room that were making these decisions. But we had those conversations. We talked and talked and talked, and finally we said we should probably bring this to the team because Coach Franklin and I had a long discussion about how this went down, but we ended up bringing it to the team in the team meeting with no coaches around, and everybody was in agreement. We should start a chapter of at least an association here. And funny story, one of our strength coaches walked in and he was like, what is going on? What is this, like union meeting or whatever? And long story short, Coach Franklin called me about 10 minutes later and was like, are you kidding me? What is going on? Yada, yada. But at the end of the day, put all that aside, he was supportive.
And Pat Kraft was too.
Yeah, everybody was. Because now he wanted me to go about it a little different. He would have rather known because he felt a little bit hurt on the trust factor because I didn't go and tell him right away. And I told him, I swear it was not because I didn't trust you. It was because I knew that this was a player's decision first. And then I knew that if we came together and we said, hey, like the players would really like to have some support, he was bought in right away because he knows that at the end of the day, we need to come together. So Coach Franklin, Pat Kraft, even Kevin Warren, we had all those people.
The then commissioner of the Big Ten.
Yes.
Now the CEO of the Bears.
CEO of the Bears, yes. So my rival, so.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kevin. We can't be too much of friends anymore. But
everybody was bought in, and it wasn't this polarizing union, us versus them. We're going to take everybody down. It was more of, hey, this is a model here at Penn State football that the other programs in the Big Ten could follow. And you started to put messaging around it and prepare to talk about it in a very positive manner that summer at Big Ten Media Days. We even saw the reporter last night here at the Final Four from ESPN, who was gonna already had the story written. He said it was a great story.
It was a great story. I read it. It was fantastic.
And then, unfortunately, some things leaked, and it put Kevin Warren in a really tough position. And Big Ten Media Days that summer ended up being you guys diffusing anything going on.
Yeah, and it was a huge bummer because at the end of the day, we had made so many strides. We were so close. Kevin and I were literally having conversations of getting up on the stage and talking about this openly and having this open dialogue. But some things got leaked and I got pinned quickly. I mean, if you look up Sean Clifford Union, you can find the whole story. People pinned me as a union leader right away, and that wasn't the case. It was just I wanted to bring athletes.
I understand.
Thank you. You understand.
I do now.
You understand
I didn't when we first talked about this, but a year later, I understand.
Yeah, it was so crazy, but what it proved to me was that we are so close. because it wasn't with that group, sadly, but we are part of the story. That's what I love to be able to say.
Absolutely.
That whole team, that buy-in, we didn't go through with it that year, and it was a thing about focus, right? Do we want to? We have a big year in front of us. We just have to have a little bit more focus. And once that league came out, it kind of just we had to diffuse the situation. But now we're pressing the button, and we're so close. We were so close in 22, 23. And now I could taste it. It's just crazy the feelings that I get around AO, the group that we have, and really it goes back. I was thinking about it this morning when we were going to have a conversation. And who better to run it than you and Cope? Because you, from a business perspective, know the athlete side and know the business side and how to grow and succeed in the business world. And then Cope, where do you start with his resume? Just say the list goes on and on. I mean, professor, Ivy League grad, 9-year vet. I mean, the man just breathes excellence. And that's the thing about when I heard and when you brought this to me of this idea of, hey, we're gonna go all in on this. I said, who better? Let's do this. Like, because we were so close early, and now let's just finish it.
Well, it's a great story. It's about a year ago, February, so about a little over a year ago.
That's crazy.
You came to Birmingham and went to a TI concert. We were
on
stage
with
TI.
Yeah, TI,
That
Jeezy. Yeah, it was a good time.
We met DJ from our team.
Yeah, Darius.
And we sat down in the office and just spent a half day talking about all this stuff. What happened in 2022 and why it needs to happen and how it doesn't have to start as a union. And I showed you what we had started to work on with AO. And you were like, this is it. Like, I want to be a part of this. Of course, you're 2 months before the NFL draft. You end up getting drafted by the Packers 2 months later. And, go through your first season, and you've been an investor in our seed round for Athletes Inc. You've brought in other investors, Will Levis, and you are not only both investors, but you started your own investment firm together, which I want to talk about in a second. But, this has been something you can say, you know what, while I'm doing what I'm doing with Limitless still, and as a Green Bay Packer, I want to still be a part of this movement, and AO is a way for me to do that. And that for me, was very affirming. So I appreciate that and the belief you have in what we're doing. And being here today, we got our board meeting here right after this interview's over, and you're going to be in on it today. So talking about 4th and 1 Ventures and some of the outlook you have for your business career, so to speak. Explain what that is and kind of just talk about your outlook for Sean Clifford off the field.
Yeah, I think it's always just about what's the next step? What's the next thing that we can make strides with and help? Because at the end of the day, helping is sales. And if I can help and support other athletes, other entrepreneurs, other people similar to me, and get them to places that I want to go, bring everybody together and have those conversations, it's selling myself as well. It's being able to move the needle and to make money and to have fun and be competitive, because that's really, that's the beauty of this country at the end of the day is the opportunity that you have to be able to be aggressive and have a driven mindset to be able to attack every day, because that's what it's all about, right? I'd rather wake up at 6 a.m. with a time block schedule that I'm not even gonna miss a beat, and the minute that I hit my head every single night, I know that I put everything I had into it every single day. And that's, at the end of the day, with 4th and 1 Ventures, with what Levis and I started with Payne down in Dallas, Texas, just being able to talk to other founders and create a portfolio of different companies to then bring other athletes together and be able to push the message and vet these companies, have Shark Tanks, and really have conversations about the companies and learn about the stories of all these different entrepreneurs, because everyone has a story at the end of the day. So for me, I guess I don't really know. And I'm okay with that. I enjoy just the process. I enjoy taking it every single day, day by day, step by step. And I know that, when I lay my head down on the pillow every night, I'm pretty proud of what I'm doing, but I'm even more proud of what my community, the people around me are doing. So,
Sean, man, we could talk for hours. You have as a guy just getting going in his mid-20s, you have a bright future, and your attitude that you just said right there is why, right? You're on offense every day. It's fun to watch you. I want to see you on offense on the field
Oh, I
very
know.
soon at
I
Lambeau,
know.
and I'm just
Preseason
really,
coming at you soon.
yeah, yeah. But I'm really, really happy we could make the time today, and I'm really excited for everybody to hear what we talked about. So thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Amazing stuff with Sean, and, we had so much fun at the Final Four, going to the games, went to a bunch of parties together. He got to meet a lot of people, that work in the industry who were there. Of course, Final Four is a gathering for the industry. Spent a lot of time with his father-in-law, as well, which was really cool, and just a really, great time talking about this topic with him. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Wanna encourage you to follow the podcast. And the best place, of course, is subscribing on Apple Podcasts. Search Now It's Legal with Jim Cavale. You can do the same thing on Spotify podcasts. Um, you can also follow us on Instagram. A lot of great clips that can give you a preview of the next episode coming out. Now It's Legal Pod is where you find us on Instagram. So just really, make sure you're engaged with this show. If you have ideas for guests that we should bring on, please send us a DM through Instagram. We'd love to hear who you think we should bring on. Maybe it's you. Um, and you also can subscribe on our YouTube channel where we take the video from this show and you can watch the interaction between the guest and I. It's also available on Apple Podcasts, now shows videos as well. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Share it with your friends, share it on social, engage with us by subscribing to the podcast, subscribing on YouTube, following us on Instagram. And we have some really exciting guests coming next. And so stay tuned for more. Now It's Legal.